Okay, Nadine, put us on the record. And Mr. Kirkpatrick, I think you were about to question your client about the incidents at Yogi Bear.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Mr. Aguilar, I want to take you back to that night in Indiana. Do you recall that evening?
Yes, sir.
Just briefly tell the judge what was going on regarding why you wanted to leave and why Elena didn't want you to leave.
The whole incident occurred pretty much because I needed to be home Sunday morning to pick up my kids because I'm trying to get more custody time with my kids. And I don't want to mess that up by not being there when I'm supposed to get them. And she wants my buddy Kenny to go and pick up my kids for me, which I don't want anyone to pick up my kids for me. I want to do it myself so I don't have any issues later in court trying to get custody of my children. And Alana didn't like it, and she was real angry about it. And she's already drunk. She's already doing a lot of crazy things because she's a little too drunk. And that just kind of put her over the edge because I would not stay at the campground. I told her I'll come back and pick her up later if she wanted, but I had to leave in the morning. And I started packing up the campground.
And what happened?
She fell down. She was laying down in the campground in between the door from inside the campground, inside the camper to the campground. She's like laying there unconscious. And I'm the one that picked her up off the ground, shaking her, trying to revive her because she's out of it. And she panicked. She goes through these panic attacks. It's not the first time. She's done this other times. We've been at motorcycle rallies where she drank too much with her meds and she goes crazy. She said, she'll take off her clothes and start running around naked. She does stuff like that. And at the campground, she didn't do that, but she's screaming and hollering because she goes through this, she has post-traumatic stress disorder from a previous domestic marriage that she had where her husband is in jail from abusing her. And she goes through these episodes where she's not in her right mind and she starts acting out. And I think that's what happened when I was trying to revive her because she was screaming.
So this happened in 2020, 2019?
This happened 2018.
The domestic did?
It was, 2019, October 12th.
So it was October 2019 after you guys had been married for 8 months or so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In October of 2019, when this happened, how old were you?
I was born in October 2019, 20. So 52.
52. At that time, where were you employed?
Michigan Department of Corrections.
Did you have any convictions for assaults in October of 2019?
No, sir.
You ever been charged with a domestic violence assault prior to 2019?
No, sir.
You ever been arrested prior to 2019?
No, sir.
And you were fully employed at the Michigan Department of Corrections in 2019 when these allegations were made against you and you were arrested for domestic violence?
Yes, sir.
They talked about the bites on Miss Aguilar's buttocks. Where did those come from?
That comes from me. I do bite her on the butt. I bite her on the butt all the time. It's not a mean or angry thing. It's just something we do while we are engaging in intercourse.
So, and she in fact told the prosecutor that as well. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% correct, but I'm pretty positive she did.
Did you ever intentionally assault her back in October of 2019 when you were arrested?
No, sir.
You actually lost your job as a result of this.
Yes, sir. I'm still fighting to get it back.
You went through hearings and things along those lines,
Yes, sir.
and you're still in the appeal process to get your job back.
It's in arbitration right now.
Okay. You realize that it's going to be difficult for the judge to decide who has what personal property. You understand that?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
You and I had that discussion.
Yeah.
The
Yes,
likelihood of you getting the property that's listed on your exhibit is probably not likely. You understand that as well?
I do. I'm just grateful she admitted to taking it.
Okay. And you just want to be divorced.
I do.
Do you believe you owe her anything for that Jeep Wrangler?
No, sir.
Do you believe you owe her anything for clothing that she claims that she left behind in a storage unit?
No, sir.
She had full access to that storage unit?
Yes, sir.
Did you have health insurance for her back in October of 2019? Was she on your health plan through the Michigan Department of Corrections?
Yes, sir.
Were you made aware of any medical bills that are outstanding as a result of the incident in Indiana?
Not that I recall.
Would you believe that your insurance would cover such incidences?
I'm pretty positive we have pretty good insurance.
Okay. Are you just asking the judge today just to grant your divorce and each of you keep what you have and just be done with this 1-year marriage?
Yes, sir. We weren't even, I would be grateful just to be done with it because that's been nothing but a black spot in my life.
Okay. And you saw the list that Mrs. Aguilar provided to the court regarding property items she admitted to taking. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe that that's more or less than what she had when the two of you were married in 2019?
It's way more than she ever had with me before she met me.
And again, you received no monies from the sale of that 2008 Jeep Wrangler.
None, sir.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-exam, Mr. White?
Your Honor, can you check with your court officer? I was hoping not to have to do this, but I've just sent the pictures to Mr. Kirkpatrick and to Peter. We're going to want these in exhibit so we can be clear exactly who the honest person here is and who isn't. So I'd ask that Peter print those off, please. I'll go forward.
Can you resend them to me? Peter had a class this afternoon, so he's not here.
Yes, I can. Yeah,
The other thing you could do, is just do a share screen and share them that way.
what's your email address, Judge?
LaFlamme@mijackson.org.
And I don't, Your Honor, number one, I don't think the court would want to show those on YouTube.
Probably not.
And number two, I guess I understand why Mr. White would want the court to see those. I guess there is an argument about whether or not the court believes Mrs. Aguilar's testimony or Mr. Aguilar's testimony. But the bottom line is I don't see, number one, where these photographs, and again, I don't care if you see them, Judge. I'm not trying to stop you from seeing them. But in the grand scheme of things, we're legitimately fighting over $1,200 from a car and some personal property items here. It's not a custody case. We're not arguing spousal support. We're not arguing for a disproportionate of the marital estate. These parties were married for 2 years, not even 2 years, and they were lived together for less than a year.
I certainly understand Andy's argument, Your Honor. Right, given
All right.
Mr. Aguilar's testimony.
I have the pictures and I've seen them.
Miss, are you ready for my cross, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Aguilar, it is true that Mrs. Aguilar came into this relationship with a 2008 Jeep Wrangler and left with no car of any kind. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it was a car that belonged to the
Is that
bank.
correct? That's a yes, right?
No,
Okay,
she didn't
sir.
own it, sir.
So, hold on. Sir, same rules apply to you that apply to her. If you can answer the question yes or no, answer it yes or no. If you can't, say so, but don't give an explanation unless you're asked for one, okay?
I'll make
Yes,
it
sir.
really easy, Your Honor. Mr. Aguilar, yes or no? Did Mrs. Aguilar come into the marriage with a 2008 Jeep Wrangler and leave with no vehicle? Yes or no?
Yes,
During the marriage, she paid certain bills and you provided certain things and made certain purchases during the marriage. Yes or no?
yes,
The Cadillac that was purchased on Facebook Marketplace, yes or no? Was that purchased during the marriage?
yes.
And that Cadillac that you purchased during the marriage, where's that now?
I gave it to my sister.
Okay. And in June of 2020, when Miss Aguilar came back, isn't it true she came back because she found out that you were on a trip with a married woman?
I don't know why she came back.
Yes or no? Did you pressure Mrs. Aguilar to give an affidavit and make up a story to the authorities to try to save your job from this criminal case?
No,
Yes or no? Did you ever have any discussions with Miss Aguilar about her affidavit or what she was supposed to tell the police or the prosecutor? Yes or no?
ask me the question again, sir.
Did you ever have any conversations with Mrs. Aguilar about what she was going to tell the police or tell the prosecutor? Yes or no?
Not that I recall.
So yes or no? So strike that. So you don't recall ever having a single conversation with her. She just volunteered to do this affidavit to help you out. Is that right?
To help me out. Is that what you're
And
saying?
you're the one that's charged with felonies and she's in the hospital. Getting the felonies dismissed with this affidavit helps you, right?
Yes, it would.
And in fact, after she did her affidavit and said all these stories that you didn't do anything to her, you dumped her for a married lady, right?
That's no, sir.
Okay. And have you ever seen the bite mark on her buttocks?
Yeah, I put in bite marks on her buttocks the whole time we were together.
Have you seen the pictures from Cameron Hospital of Miss Aguilar's buttocks?
Yes,
And you believe that that was some type of consensual sexual activity?
I'm not sure we're talking about the same picture then, sir.
Well, the one that's broke the skin and is bleeding?
I don't.
Maybe you could take a look here. See where you broke the skin? See your
Yeah.
buttocks where you broke the skin and you bruised it and you cut her butt?
Is that a bite mark or a sucking mark?
Those are two bite marks that broke the skin. You don't
Okay,
remember
that's your-
doing that?
You know, I don't.
Now, the police officers that came, they didn't buy your story at all, did they? And they arrested you and charged you with felonies, right?
It's they said.
Well, hold on. It's a yes or no.
I
Did the
don't
police
know if
officers? Did the police
I don't
officers
know
tell
if
you?
Your Honor, I guess it's a
Hold on. I
I'll
can't have
rephrase.
two people talking at the same time. Let's try the question again.
I'll rephrase. At any time did the officers tell you words to the effect, Boy, Mr. Aguilar, I totally believe you, and you're the victim here. Have a good day, and we'll see you later. Was that ever said to you at any time? Yes or no?
I don't think that, no.
Was that ever said to you at any time? Yes or no?
I said no.
Okay. And in fact, the police officers listened to your story because you talked to them, right?
Yes, sir.
You told them this whole story, and after you tell this story and Alana tells her story, they arrested you, right?
Yes, sir.
They didn't believe a word you said, did they?
Yeah, I
I
guess
can't
would
tell you what someone else believes.
speculation. What the officers believed or didn't believe cannot be in his mind.
Well,
So Steve,
you've told the same story to the Michigan Department of Corrections, right?
Yes, sir.
They didn't believe your story either because they fired you.
And again, it doesn't necessarily mean whether they believe the story or not. He was charged with domestic violence. That leads to a time off, administrative leave, and then they did have a hearing and made a determination they weren't going to bring him back.
So, but for Alana telling the prosecutor not to prosecute you, you could have been convicted of felonies or other charges, right?
I'm not. Ask me the question again, sir.
But for Alana's help, you could be a convicted felon right now for the charges that you had, right?
No,
Were you charged with felonies?
I was charged.
And do you believe that without Elena's cooperation that they would have just dismissed the charges because you said that it didn't happen?
I believe if it would have went to court, it would have got thrown out. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you don't feel any responsibility for any of the medical costs that Alana has as a result of her going to the hospital from an altercation with you?
Sir, I had medical coverage. It would have took care of it except for the deductible.
And I think she said that I think it was $5,000. The deductible was like $800. You don't think you have any obligation to that?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay, that's all I have, Your Honor.
any redirect, Mr. Kirkpatrick?
No, Your Honor.
Any rebuttal testimony, Mr. Well, wait, any other further witness, Mr. Kirkpatrick?
No, Your Honor.
Any rebuttal, Mr. White?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, we're ready for arguments.
Well, Your Honor,
Go ahead, Mr.
clearly, it's undisputed that my client came into this marriage with a 2008 Jeep Wrangler that had equity in it. You've heard her story about how it was essentially she traded it in. Mr. Aguilar was going to get her another vehicle. Instead, he buys a vehicle during the marriage, which obviously makes it marital property. And supposedly that's for Miss Aguilar, except for he ends up giving it away to somebody else. Clearly, my client's entitled to a vehicle. She came into the marriage with a vehicle and is left with nothing. She's described, and you've seen the photographs. Nobody with any common sense is going to believe that story, Mr. Aguilar. This is so standard, it should be in the dictionary, Judge. You've got an abusive person who beats somebody senseless. They want to stay. So what do? We've all seen it a million times. You've seen it in your abuse neglect docket. Officer, no, he didn't mean it. I fell. We've all seen this, but you can tell from what happened. He assaulted her, and I realize it's a short-term marriage, but my client certainly came into it with a vehicle. She came into it with certain personal property, and she's incurred some medical expenses as a result of being beat. We would ask that you award her and compensate her for the vehicle, the personal property, and the medical bills. Thank you.
Did you have a value in mind for those items, Mr. White?
Yes, it was $12,000 for the vehicle, $800 for the medical deductible, and $1,200 of personal property. We don't have anything on the ambulance, so I can't really give the court any information. I tried to locate it, but I couldn't do it.
So I'm sorry, you said 12,000 for the vehicle, 800 for the medical, and what?
$1,200 for personal property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Your Honor, first of all, the domestic violence was dismissed. I understand there's a question here of whether Mrs. Aguilar did that so that at Mr. Aguilar's request didn't do that, but we're not dealing with a intentional tort here. We're not dealing with a claim in this divorce action for any type of damages as a result of any assault and battery that may or may not have occurred during the marriage. The issue here is the vehicle, the medical bills, and the property. Let's talk about the vehicle first. By Mrs. Aguilar's own testimony, this vehicle was not worth anywhere near $12,000. There's been no documentation presented to this court that justifies a $12,000 value. There's no blue books, there's no appraisals, there's nothing. What there is Mrs. Aguilar's own sworn testimony. And that testimony was that Jeep had a lot of problems, clutch problems, transmission problems. And as a result of that, the blue book value went down. As a result of that, she of her own free will sold that vehicle to Huff Auto. Huff Auto paid off an outstanding lien that was on that vehicle. So there was money owed on the vehicle. The vehicle was not free and clear. And at the conclusion of that sale, the only equity that was determined as a result of that Jeep by Mrs. Aguilar's own testimony was $1,200, not $12,000. With that $1,200, Mrs. Aguilar testified under oath that she paid off a minimum of $300 of her own debt that she had in Texas that was not Mr. Aguilar's debt. And the remaining $900 was paid towards bills of the home. The testimony of Mrs. Aguilar was during the marriage, she had about $100 left over a week at most after she contributed to the marital bills, specifically the rent, the light bill, the phone bills. And yet she comes to this marriage with a 2008 busted up Jeep Cherokee that she ends up getting $1,200 from, plus whatever the lien was that was paid off, and so a few property items, to leaving with the list that the court is in receipt of by her own admission she left the marriage with. She, in fact, left this marriage in a better position than she did when she came into this one-year marriage. And it's quite clear from her testimony as well that Mr. Aguilar, from his pay from the Michigan Department of Corrections, is what purchased the very property items that Mrs. Aguilar took back to Texas. If you add up the values placed upon those items, she could never have afforded any of those personal property items because she did not have the income to support purchasing those personal items. Regarding so I believe the vehicle's a wash. She sold it, she got the money, and that's that. Regarding the personal crafts and photographs, and she puts a value of $1,200. First of all, I think she did have access to the storage unit. She was able to load up the moving truck with everything else, but these few items. And secondly, there's been no showing or proof to the court what those items were actually worth. Now, I will concede on one issue, and my client's probably not going to be happy about this, but I want to make sure that we get this right. And if anything, my client may be responsible for some medical bills as they were married at the time. And not because he agrees that he created those medical bills or that he caused those injuries, that his position is that she fell, but that, Your Honor, is maybe the only potential argument that Mrs. Aguilar has regarding any equitable relief here. But it's clear from the testimony, these parties were married. It's not even 2 years that they've been married, and they lived together for right at a year. And Mrs. Aguilar is better off now than she was financially when she entered into this marriage. I'm asking the court, quite frankly, each party keeps their property. My client could make an argument and a claim based upon our trial brief. When you add up the items that he claims Mrs. Aguilar took from the property, comes up to $7,069 that's been presented to the court, which clearly outweighs the value of the Jeep, the clothes, the crafts, and the medical bills. But my client is also not naive to the fact that it's very difficult for the court to make a determination on who got what personal property and who didn't. Your Honor, I'm asking the court to grant the judgment of divorce. My client also wants to be divorced, to deny their request for the $12,000 for the vehicle, deny their request for the $1,200 for her personal property she claims she didn't get. And if Mr. White or Mrs. Aguilar could provide me with an ambulance bill or a medical bill, I will discuss that with my client, as I had no knowledge that that even existed prior to the hearing today. It's not in their trial brief. It's not in any information I received as far as those medical bills are concerned. And quite frankly, I think that's something we could have negotiated before we even came before Your Honor this afternoon. So I'm just asking that they each keep what they have, and the court denied the request for the monetary payment. She's made more than that in the property she's actually received.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. White?
Andy hit on the problem we have with valuation. As you know, Blue Book's hearsay anyway, and it's difficult to Blue Book a vehicle that's been gone. We don't know the mileage. It's difficult to value all this stuff. The court's left with a difficult position, but I think my client's in a lot worse shape than when she started. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let me address the Jeep Wrangler because I think that's the easiest to address. Ms. Aguilar came into this marriage with a Jeep Wrangler with a substantial debt owed on it. It wasn't in very good condition. She sold it, and the money was used to pay off the debt that she brought into the marriage. And the remaining $1,200 she was able to spend, it looks like, at least partially on marital obligations, if not all. But I don't see any basis for awarding anything with respect to the Jeep Wrangler. I do believe that Mr. Aguilar should be responsible for the medical bills. I'm going to order that he reimburse Ms. Aguilar for actual out-of-pocket if she can produce the bills. I don't want to hear an estimate that I paid $800 in copay. I can't imagine it was exactly $800. If she can produce a bill, Mr. Aguilar should make good on that. I realize that there is disputed facts on the domestic violence charge. However, it does appear to me that although the truth probably lies somewhere in between, it probably lies closer to Ms. Aguilar's version than Mr. Aguilar's version. I would say he's getting off pretty cheaply for simply having to repay those medical bills. I don't find that any other amounts have been satisfactorily proven. She clearly got away from this marriage with more than she brought in. I think the parties keep what's in their possession now. I am finding that there's a breakdown in the marriage to the extent the objects of matrimony have been destroyed. There remains no reasonable likelihood that the marriage can be preserved. I am granting the judgment of divorce. I am not granting spousal support, and it should be forever barred as to both parties. Mr. White, you will prepare a judgment of divorce consistent with my ruling?
I will, Your Honor.
Okay, anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Lana, I'm sorry, Andy. Lana, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Did you ask him about the $600 stimulus that was
Oh, I'm
deposited?
sorry, Your Honor. I'm sorry, I forgot. My client should have gotten a stimulus check deposited into Mr. Aguilar's account, the most recent Trump bucks that came through, like probably in the last month. If it was deposited into Mr. Aguilar's account, can we get that disgorged?
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Mr. Aguilar got her stimulus, this most recent one, absolutely, he needs to return that to her. You can include that in the judgment.
And that
Thank you
was,
very much.
that was the most recent one that came out within the last, when was
Real
it
recent.
actually deposited? Could you at least give me that?
I don't even have that checking account, sir. It's been closed.
We'll figure it out. If he's got it, I'll put it in if he's got it. We'll figure it out, Andy.
If he received it, he'll be responsible for it. If not, we'll find a paper trail. If it went into a closed account, it should be still sitting there from the IRS to be reissued. They
Perfect.
should get that out pretty quickly.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you. Have a good day.